Hi, my name is Dan Rochon. I've been selling real estate for more than a decade. My team and I, we have sold thousands of homes. And this is how we do it.
Today I want to teach you about the foundation of success in real estate sales and how you can have a more consistent income, sell more homes, and easily have a more predictable paycheck in sales month after month. My name is Dan Rochon. I've been selling real estate since November 2007. I sold my first home in April 2008. And since then, I've sold from 1 to 15 homes every single month for an ongoing streak of 141 consecutive homes sold. Now imagine what your life would look like as a sales agent when you have 12 years of month after month after month after month of closings. To realize this predictability with ease, you're going to need a strong foundation. So when I was in my early 20s or 30s, I worked as a waiter, and it's one of the highest end steakhouses in DC. And this is where senators and lobbyists and celebrities, they went to win each other over and impress each other. They dined on the $85 dry aged porterhouse steaks and drank the $350 bottles of wine. It was crazy. I mean, it was the lobbyists were there and the celebrities, and I would overhear conversations that would be broadcast in breaking news section of the Washington Post. The next day, I would hear about those the previous night. So every once in a while, we had a slow day, and we could glance up at the televisions that hung above the giant wrought iron eagles that guarded the kitchen entryway. And we could watch the talking heads spit insults at each other like they were like these characters from the Hatfield-McCoy conflict. Previous night, those same combatants, they were cordially dining, friends at the same table. It was crazy. Now, I learned a lot. I earned a lot of money at this job, but I hated it. My vision for the future, it was clouded. I knew where I wanted to be. I had no idea how to get there. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to help a bunch of people, a ton of people. And I was determined to find a way to either buy a company or start a company. And I did a lot of research. I met with business brokers. I attended franchise fairs. I had lunch with business owners. My efforts, they really created no opportunities. So I continued to search. The only clear conclusion that amounted was that I really learned I did not nearly have enough, not even close enough of money to start a business. So I pleaded with relatives. I asked them to loan me the money. I went to a bank. I asked them to loan me the money. Well, bank, they're a little silly about these things. They wanted a thing called collateral, to lend me $250,000 or $500,000. I mean, that's pretty silly of them, right? I mean, I had no assets to guarantee the payment. And I remember being devastated. I remember being just really confused at the time because I had no real mentors and I felt alone. So I was figuring out what to do, how to leave this miserable life behind me working in restaurants. And Tracy, who's now my wife and my girlfriend at the time, her brother, Dan Adler, he invited us to go sailing. He owns a sailboat. It was down there on the Chesapeake Bay. And I remember the wind whipping across the bow and the waves lapping across the craft. And we're sailing across the Chesapeake Bay. The sun was shining on us. A couple hours into the journey, Dan asked me, he says, "Hey, Dan, has Tracy introduced you to the Landmark Forum?" I was like, "Landmark what?" I looked over at Tracy. She's cringing, right? She's like, "Don't ask Dan that," right? So soon after this conversation that Dan Adler and I had, I enrolled in this thing called the Landmark Forum. And that's what Dan Adler suggested. I was really unsure of what to expect, but I figured, hey, if it's good enough for Dan, it's good enough for me. Because at the time, I was even like a tad bit little jealous of Dan. He was a couple of years older than me. He's still a couple of years older than me. He was prosperous. He still is prosperous. And I perceived him to be very successful in many, many respects. So I was willing to follow any advice he had to offer. So I signed up for the class, and soon after doing so, I realized that some people call this a cult. Others called it a personal development curriculum, and I found it to be a little bit of both. And so I decided to take the benefits and leave everything else to the side. Now, Tracy, later on, she shared with me that that recoil that I saw on her face when her brother mentioned the Landmark Forum, was because she knew if I took the path that her brother had suggested, I would be able to call Tracy on her stuff. And I learned how to do that. But more importantly, soon after, my life, it changed dramatically. So here's what I want to share with you. So as frivolous as it may seem looking back, my greatest fear that I had, going through this curriculum was they told me I can't drink alcohol. It was only for like a 5-day course. And I could not imagine abstaining from alcohol for that long. I mean, at the time I was what you may call a functioning alcoholic. And, maybe it'd be better if I was non-functioning, because at least I would have had, been forced to make different choices sooner. But, I was definitely drinking a lot. So, I was forced to be in this situation where for 5 days I would not have to drink. I mean, you have to remember, each day I was waking up, I was dehydrated from drinking every day. My head was pounding. I would utter every single day. I remember I would say, I will not drink today. I will not drink today. I will not drink today. And I half believed that. Every day I woke up, I'd chug a glass of cold water, brush my teeth, take a hot shower, head down to the posh steakhouse in D.C. and attend our 10:30 a.m. shift meeting, and go and start serving food and drink for the next 14 hours. So typically I would lag through most of the day at the restaurant, and then my head would usually clear up around 7 o'clock or so, and by about 10 p.m. I'd find my first salvation, that first sip of wine or beer. Most nights I would drink about 12-pack of beer, and then I would top that off with another 2 bottles of wine and pass out to the next morning. Well, I managed not to drink during the landmark class, and I didn't know it at the time, but this was my first peek into understanding that I could design my own life. So a few weeks after graduating, I'd resumed my daily drinking, yet I knew I was close to making that decision to change. And, my last hurrah, it was epic, my last drinking hurrah. And, well, it was epic until I experienced the aftermath. I remember we lived in Alexandria at the 3-bedroom townhome at the time, and I long ago that morning ejected all the contents of my stomach. I was dry heaving. I mean, I hate to tell that to you, but that was the truth. My kidneys, they were like this sharp pain, just shrieking. My head was reverberating. I mean, I was in agony. I just can never, this was my last hangover. I was parched. You could have hooked a ton of IVs up to me, no water. I was looking for this small reprieve. I mean, no water, no IV could have even healed me in that morning. And I remember it was time for a change. So that day, I got sober. I chose to create my own destiny. I went to rehab. Now, the withdrawal that I experienced the first few months without a drink was so painful that I remember saying, I never want to experience these days again. So early in sobriety, I understand that I would spend the rest of my life alcohol-free. And this time I knew that the pronouncement to never drink again was real. Today, I consider the most critical decision I've ever made was to stop drinking. I cherish my sobriety more than any other asset that I have, because I place it in front of all else, because I know if I ever drink again, I will lose every single gift that I possess. Now, when I attended rehab, I learned a lot of things about myself and my addiction, and I learned that my emotional age did not match my physical age. Emotionally, I was not very mature. In many ways, I was like a rebellious teen rather than a grown man. And I realized it took me about a third of a century to grow up. And, I was rapidly evolving now. And I started to understand that I could actually step outside of my comfort zone. I realized I could be motivated by choose to rather than have to. And now that I experienced a relationship with my health through sobriety, I also knew that I could conquer whatever obstacle was set in front of me. I could achieve any worthy goal. So I revisited my desire to be a business owner. I began to consider real estate sales as an option, and I went and did a little bit more homework. Now, I found out to be able to get started in real estate sales, I just had to take a 60-hour licensing course. I would need about $2,000, which was a little bit less than that $250,000 to $500,000 I was looking for to start a different business. And I realized that the amount of money that I could earn as a real estate sales agent was unlimited. And I loved the idea that I would get compensated for my efforts. Now, I was still scared at the time. So you have to understand, this was late 2007, and the words of the day was foreclosures, credit crisis, worst economy ever, government bailout. That's the words that we're hearing on everybody's lips. And, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I little thought about the economy. I enrolled in that pre-licensing school, and in November 2007, as I mentioned before, I got my real estate license. And I did have a lot of fears at the time. I dreaded failure. I knew I was entering a new venture where I had no experience, and I really shrank at the thought that others might judge me. So now I was scared, but I also had the knowledge that I knew I was destined to be an entrepreneur, And I finally found a way. And so I started to blossom. My emotional growth, it began to accelerate. I learned that self-actualization is the basis for success in any area of life. I understood that personal development, it is the foundation for success in life and in real estate sales. For you to achieve success as a real estate agent, you're going to have to grow. Growth is crucial because your business is only going to grow to the extent that you do. And as a real estate agent, your mind, that's your number one resource. This is your toolbox. You deliver your wisdom through your communications, through the words that you use, your tonality, your inflection, the volume of your voice, your physiology. Are you sitting up straight? How are you communicating? You're connecting with rapport, how you be able to communicate with your clients. And as you begin to flourish, these things will evolve. But you have to start. So because I want you to start, I wrote the book, The Real Estate Sales Evolution. This is the ultimate guide to easily sell more homes, earn a more consistent income, and gain 100% certainty in your real estate sales business. I talk about developing personally in this book. I go into personal hacks to be able to set yourself up for success. Some of the topics that I discuss is how can you look for leads? How can you convert those leads to an appointment? So focusing on the conversion. How can you give a great presentation? You got to nail it. How can you get hired? How can you get those buyers and sellers under contract? And then get to a successful closing. I talk about how to get referrals and reviews, how to have others sing your praises, and how, if you're interested, how to build, support, and guide a team. And then finally, I finish up with how to choose profit. And then I talk about the evolution that our real estate sales business has already experienced. That's commoditization, big data, artificial intelligence. And if you haven't realized it yet, we're already experiencing an evolution. Now, we're going to be publishing this book sometime in the first quarter of 2020. And if you're interested to be a part of our VIP list to receive an inaugural first print version, join Rock Solid Real Estate Agents by Greetings Virginia Facebook group, and you can learn how to get your advanced copy. That's Rock Solid Real Estate Agents by Greetings Virginia on Facebook. It's a group. Join us now.